There once was a man named Gold Roger who was king of the pirates. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were the final words he said.
Our perspective is yours for the taking, but you'll have to join us first. We left everything we debated at the Yonko table.
Ever since, pirates from all over the world set sail for the Grand Line, searching for the Yonko table, the table that will make their dreams come true. Yo, everyone. That is the voice of your Yonko host, DrJaceAttorney, and we're all Jojo posing for Stone Ocean. That's right, folks. Jojo Part 6, Stone Ocean, has finally graced us with its ending, and we got a lot to talk about with the ending of Stone Ocean. If you guys were keeping up with us as far back as last year, believe it or not, we covered the first batch of episodes of Stone Ocean. We covered episodes 1 through 13, I believe. We didn't cover the second batch, but there's a reason for that, and I think we'll likely bring it up as we talk about this today. But with me to deep dive Jojo, I imagine he's a Jojo stan, is Nino Desplazado. Nino, here for Stone Ocean?
I definitely am. I honestly am.
Okay. I'm here for it too. I got a lot to say about this ending with Stone Ocean. One thing I want to bring up before we get into the meat of this finale. I feel like it's gonna come up at some point, so let's just bring it up to the forefront now. I despise Netflix's release of Stone Ocean. I'm guessing you're in the same boat. Like, you do not like how they did Stone. To me, it's dirty.
It's just because they want to have their cake and eat it too. At this point, Netflix is so used to their own release schedules. They try to do it with Stranger Things this year, even, where they had
the two parts.
Yeah, they had part 1, and then the last 2 episodes, which were also like 2 hours long each,
easily
came in 3 weeks later or something.
Yeah. It was barely a month later the final batch came out. I mean, I get it, right? Netflix is the binge streaming network. I understand that, but I feel like for certain series, especially anime of all things, certain series just benefit more from weekly releases. JoJo for me is one of those. I kind of caught up to part 1 through 3 back when those were all airing already. It just finished, so I wasn't on the JoJo train on the weekly side of things. But once I got into Diamond is Unbreakable, I was caught up. So I was watching those weekly, and let me tell you, it was so good every week, just seeing the community go back and forth and just the hype that gets built up. Golden Wind even had that too. But I feel like with Stone Ocean, regardless of its story, whether you think it's better than the older parts or worse than the older parts, I feel like any momentum it could have had was killed because of releasing it in batches. No one talked about this. No one talked about it.
I think the original plan was to have one batch release every year. And we were supposed to get the last part. Yes, we were supposed to get the last part. This last part
next year. Absolutely not. Hell no.
I waited to see part 2 until part 3 was confirmed coming out.
Oh, that's right. I remember we talked about that a little bit.
And it's just because it's really unfair. I've seen a lot of JoJo people who were talking about it, saying that JoJo used to be a very weekly event for them.
Yes.
It was very, and Netflix really fumbled. They really fumbled all the momentum they could have had, because they could have had 38 straight weeks of just straight JoJo.
No one would have complained.
No one. And
man.
And when you think about it that way, Netflix would have had people incentivizing to at least stay for 38 weeks.
Actually, yeah, that's probably a good business strategy. You gotta stay with Netflix for 38 weeks. So how long is that? 8 months? Or about 8 months. That's 8 months of subscription for Netflix that you got to stick with JoJo if you want to watch it officially.
And this is bleeding in from all the other shows as well, because they really want to keep their brand the same. They don't want to do weekly releases.
Oh man!
But honestly, when you look at all the big shows that have happened this year, and this is taking it outside of JoJo, but all the big shows that have happened on all the streaming sites this year have been week to week. House of the Dragon, Kenobi,
The Boys.
Yeah, The Boys.
Lord of the Rings. I know some people are indifferent to Rings of Power, but yeah, you're right. You're right. They were weekly events.
Yeah, and they doing it in batches. I'm glad that they brought the third batch now.
Yes.
Because now we could end the year finally with the rest of Stone Ocean. It shouldn't have taken a year. It really shouldn't have, because I think they were already done. But it did seem, especially with the last episodes, I would say maybe the last 6 episodes, the animation went through the roof.
Like in a good way, bad way?
Oh no, in a good way.
Good way, good way. Okay.
Yeah, there were moments where I was like, oh, they're really putting money into this. So maybe they went back in and had the, they were saying, oh, we're ending it and we're gonna redo. Maybe they were gonna redo some scenes, or maybe they just put a lot of the budget to the last 6 to 8 episodes. Because once they get out of Orlando, the what do you call it? The animation quality
the animation
just goes up.
There's definitely some really cool moments in the third batch of episodes that maybe I enjoyed it a little bit more than the second batch, in all honesty. But hey, we keep alluding to it. Let's talk about it, right? The third batch of episodes. We'll talk about the third batch and kind of focus in on that, and then we'll talk about Stone Ocean overall. Like, how does it compare to the previous parts, and how like, I guess, what we look forward to in a sequel, if there is gonna be one. I hope there's one. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll see. So Stone Ocean, right? It picks up right where we left off with the second batch of episodes. Father Pucci is evolving his stand, right? Is that what's going on? He's
weird things. I think what I really love about Stone Ocean is that it develops all these ideas that have been building since part 1 into something like I think everything that Araki wanted in part 5 of the manga to happen, especially with Crimson Emperor.
The one that Diavolo had.
The confusing one.
I remember when I was watching it, I was like, no one knows what his stand does.
So I think everything that he wanted in part 5 in the manga to be like the high concept kind of end of the world shenanigans that is happening in part 5, I think it succeeds in part 6 in the manga and in the anime. You see kind of, because we get hinted at about Requiem in part 4. We get and we see it with Requiem, but now this is like an evolution of Requiem. Like this is like Pokemon evolving, honestly.
Pokemon. The comparison.
It's true. But
I believe it. Yeah.
When you think of, and it's funny when you think about it. This may have been one of the things that Araki took from Pokemon, just because Pokemon took so many things from JoJo's.
Really?
Think about it. JoJo's came before Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, and Pokemon. Before then, everyone was using their fists to fight. JoJo's introduced having something come out and creating a bond with it, and then have that fight the enemy for you. Without JoJo's, there'd be no.
Okay. I see. So like the stand is like the Pokemon in a way.
The Yu-Gi-Oh card, the Digimon. It's true.
Okay, yeah, I can buy. Yeah, you're right. Because like a lot of shows before then, or animes, manga, they would be like, you're physically the one that's doing the punching, or you're swinging the sword. You're the guts of the series. Okay, I could buy that. JoJo walks so that Pokemon could swindle money out of its player base.
Uh,
We're not here to talk about Pokemon though. But yeah, like I can see that, right? Like for me, I kind of felt that in watching this. I felt like this was a better version of part 5 in a lot of ways, kind of going into what you were saying too, like a lot of the end of the world type of things that were going on. I feel like Araki told a much better version of that in Stone Ocean. Because with Golden Wind, I even remember when I was watching the final episode, I was playing catch up because the anime was already done with Golden Wind already, and I watched it like maybe 2 years later. I was like, I remember texting the group chat. I'm like, what does this stand do? What does it develop? I don't understand.
Yeah, and that was the biggest meme in the JoJo community.
Oh, so it was universal. It was
Yes,
universal. Okay.
that's why people say to watch part 5 and not read it, because reading it's very confusing. He was experimenting a lot with different things.
Yeah.
I think that Stone Ocean kind of, even though the scope is much bigger, it's so much easier to understand, in terms of like experimentation. Like there's a lot of things that I feel like he wasn't just throwing things at the wall. He was kind of like, oh, let's see what the natural progression of what I've established is.
Right.
And what goes beyond evolving a stand,
Right.
And
right.
And apparently it's having a baby.
That baby, let me tell you, like every time I did a video on these episodes, and I have them on the DrJaceAttorney YouTube, I did reactionary videos to them. Every time I did an episode, I kept thinking like, yo, is this Dio? Is this Dio? Is this gonna turn into Dio? There's a lot of callbacks to Dio, and maybe I looked too much into it because at some point I thought Dio's coming back, like he's gonna, I don't know, emerge out of Poochie's skin or something, or just something's gonna happen with him. That didn't happen, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But I can appreciate kind of like, Dio's influence stretching all the way from part 1 and just finally culminating in this like final, catastrophic event that shakes up the universe.
Yeah, Dio really had the footprint in all of JoJo's villains, because none of the villains would exist without Dio, or would be relevant without Dio. If Dio didn't, Dio didn't find the mask and like basically show that it's possible to become a vampire, part 2 would not happen.
Oh man, the mask.
Yeah.
The good old days.
And then from everything else, it's kind of just a cause and effect. It's shenanigans. But
right.
I think what this part does, I think in part 3 of this Stone Ocean does well, is I felt that once in part 2, once we left the prison, it kind of dipped a little in quality. Like I felt like, and I feel like this is just a specific pacing issue with the anime, because it felt that they were trying to waste a little time. We got like fights with Jolene, Hermes, and Emporio with other people, and then we had the I get what he's trying to do with the Pinocchio part, in part 2.
Oh my god, no, I agree. It felt like a pace breaker.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
I understand, because he's trying to make the most of the Florida, the Florida, what's it called, environment that he can. Yeah, because he's like, might as well, I'm never gonna get a chance to do it again.
Right. So. No, I agree. Like it's one of those things where I felt kind of weird about it too, because the majority of the setting of Stone Ocean is in the Green Dolphin prison. Yeah. And I always thought, well, that's going to be the whole gimmick of Stone Ocean. We're going to be in this prison up until the end. And I don't know if Jolene gets out of prison or escapes prison, whatever, but that'll be at the end. This last third, literally, like it just leaves the prison setting entirely. And it goes on from there, through the Kennedy Space Center, Orlando. And I find it really interesting because like other JoJo parts didn't really do that. too much. Like part 4 was like all Morio City, right? All of it's Morio City. Morio City is basically the character in Diamond is Unbreakable. Part 5 was all of Italy. Part 3 was, you know, the trip to Egypt and then outside of Egypt. This one I felt was jarring. It was like all prison. All right, let's leave the prison now.
Yeah, and I think when they're traveling, it really is a callback to part 3. Because
when they get out of the prison,
yes,
and they're traveling. Okay.
Because when you think about it, like, or at least that's the feeling I was getting. I was like, oh, they're trying to have a conversation with part 3 in this sense, because they're showing that they're traveling and then they're having these wacky adventures trying to just get to the place to stop this person, because they have a place, they have a purpose, they know what they need to do, and it's kind of like a straight
right.
Kennedy Space Cape Canaveral is the Cairo of this part.
Yes. Yes.
So it kind of meanders a bit, but then in this section, I would say this section, things start really picking up once we get to the hospital that Pucci is in with the guy in the wheelchair. And I really like those characters.
The Sons of Dio?
Yes, because they are everything that Giorno could have been. In the worst way.
Right. And I hate myself for this, because I didn't take it when I was watching it in the literal sense. I thought it was like, you know, oh, we're all sons of Dio because we kind of believe in the same thing of obtaining heaven. And I know they had like the Joestar birthmark on their shoulders, but Weather Report, I think, had one too, right?
Yes.
So I thought that was like not a literal, like, oh, they're related to Dio or a Joestar. I thought it was like something weird with the green baby. It was, you know, causing other people to, for some reason, have the birthmark, and that meant something. But now looking back, I kind of like it a little bit more, because it's kind of like what you said. It is everything that Giorno could have been. Like, Giorno ended up more Joestar than Dio.
Yeah.
He still has the Muda. I still like the Muda for Giorno. But yeah, that was definitely something I had to look back on and be like, oh, the Sons of Dio are actually sons of Dio. I didn't know that watching it.
Dio got around. Dio is our bisexual king.
Exactly. And you know what? It makes sense. I don't expect Dio to pull out from like any game he's in. Like, he probably has many more kids throughout the JoJo universe, like all across the world.
And I guess we'll get to Dio at the end, because I feel like there's an explanation, like, talk we need to have about what Pucci wanted. But
okay.
Once we're in that, what do you call it? Once we're in that hospital, things really start picking up, and it took me a while for it to click, because I feel like the first 2 Sons of Dio were just weird.
So who were because I'm trying to remember like which ones came first. The first one was the guy with the white suit thing, right? Because I'm thinking who was the last one. The last one was that guy with the airplane stand, right? Like whatever's in the ground.
Yes, the ground, the excavator.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You like that one? That Son of Dio.
Yes.
Okay. I think I agree too on that one.
Yeah. The other 2, I think one of them was the one with the fairy tale stand. Oh, the one on the plane. Yes. We barely saw any of him. He was weird, and then he just brain dead. His brain turned to mush. And then the other one was like, he was like disabled his entire life, and he had like these weird rods that he could control, and they were weird.
Yeah.
It was just, you know, things so that.
Oh yeah, like these invisible flying fish things.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was the second guy, I think.
Yeah, so those were just weird. I feel like when the third guy gets it and we just see this whole underground with the airplane, I was like, oh, this is what is going on.
Yeah.
And I remember getting that. I forgot a little bit of what happened in the manga. It's the same thing. I just
Right.
forgot. But when I was watching it, I was like, oh dear
How are
God,
they
I
gonna get
don't.
out of this?
Yes. Um, and then there were just so many things happening at the same time. Like you had Weather Report and Anastasia trying to hone in
Yeah.
on their um, their location. You had them trying to get out of the aircraft. You had like the cops coming. You had Pucci literally
Right.
berating this man for no reason, and he was like, "I'm gonna be the Dio's son. I deserve it." And it was
I
just
deserve heaven.
it was just so you know wacky in the best way possible.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
and then we finally get once that resolves, and he steals the weather report's memories, things
Yes.
really start taking off.
I think that's where I got invested. Like I started watching the episodes like back to back. The previous ones I was kind of like, all right, let me watch two and then I'll watch the other two later or
Yeah,
the next day. But once the weather report starts kicking in, that's where I'm like, "Oh, okay, what is going on here? What's this deal with weather report?" So so who is weather report, right? He's apparently Poochie's fraternal twin? Is that
yes, he's his
okay?
fraternal twin, and he had a really interesting backstory.
It was
um
very interesting.
and this is where I think Araki knows how to use his environment and setting to his advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though Florida is kind of its own pocket universe within America, it's still in the South, and Pucci is from, regardless of the name, and
Right.
Pucci is a black man. That
Yeah.
is very important.
Right.
Um, and to just show that there was so much, like they grew up in the South, and that this entire thing was revolving with them. Then they got
Right.
involved. They got involved with the KKK at some point, and
Crazy.
they basically lynched. Well, they did lynch like Weather Report,
Yeah, they did.
and
Because they found
then
out he was the half brother or the full
yes,
brother. Was he
yes,
half brother or full brother?
no, he was the full brother,
Full
but
brother. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
but what do you call it? Pucci came out like sometimes what's it called? What's it the Punnett squares? Sometimes one baby comes out black and the other one comes out very
Oh,
light skinned. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's plausible, but they thought the other baby died. So um
Right.
it's just it's so crazy that he intertwined real history, or like real history inspired
Yeah.
into the story here.
I think he did it very well. Like
Yeah.
that kind of hit a little home on the head with something that big. I was like, "Oh wow, they're going Jojo's going this way." Okay.
Hmm.
That really sucks for Weather Report.
Yeah, and
Um
and it feels like, and I just don't like how many red herrings they gave, because but then again, the person who said it, um there was the son of Dio was like, when he gets his memories back, he's not going to be your ally, and like he
yeah,
kept emphasizing that.
yeah, so like I took Weather Report's like past and upbringing and him wanting to take revenge on Poochie as like, oh yeah, Poochie in Weather Report's eyes, he screwed his life over completely. He's the good guy in a way. He wants revenge. But there's that red herring that you're mentioning where like as soon as Weather Report gets his memories back, he grabs that random nurse and just like I think he kills him and
Yeah.
with his stand, and I'm like, oh my god, oh, is he friend or ally to Jolene? What's gonna happen here? And then literally in the next episode, you learn, oh wait, he's on our side. He really hates Poochie. Why? But why did he kill the nurse? Did he just do that because he felt
I
like
mean,
it?
he's being a silly goose. He's like, ooh, turn to a snail,
A
then
silly
die.
banana.
Yeah, I think it was to draw like, ooh, like what's gonna, again, when you're reading chapter by chapter, and I
Right.
guess we know this as well from One Piece, a lot of red herrings in Wano, and then we're like,
Oh,
just kidding, it's over. I think it's the
joke's on
same thing
you.
here. It's the same
Right.
thing here, but I think once he gets his memories back, and wait, I actually have to pause here
Mm-hmm.
because I need to mention something of another son of Dio. the one with the flying fish. Araki stole the backstory from that one with the flying fish from Holes.
Holes. Oh,
think about it. He was walking down the street, and then shoes fall from the sky.
Oh,
and then he got locked up, and he stole it from Holes.
That is straight up Holes. Yeah, it was shoes. It was shoes. When was Stone Ocean written? It was like 09, 08?
I think it started in 05. Let me see.
And then I think it carried into 2011.
Yeah. But that was way after Holes.
Yeah. It would have been after Holes was already a thing. Yeah, I can buy that. I can buy that.
No, it was it was 2000 to 2003. That was the original run.
Stone Ocean?
Yeah, Stone Ocean in the manga.
Oh, okay. Wow, man.
And let's see. Holes, what do you call it? Came out in that's the movie came out in 2003. But what about the book?
We gotta confirm this. Because that would be interesting. Did Holes steal it? Did Holes steal it from JoJo? Or I guess maybe because it was like towards the end, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, but like let's see. No, came out in 1998.
1998. Okay, the book Holes.
Yeah, the book.
Okay.
So definitely stole from. Definitely stole it.
That wasn't an original take. Araki got it from somewhere. That's funny.
When I saw that, I started laughing my ass off because I'm like, this is literally Holes.
This is literally Stanley Yelnats.
You're Stanley Yelnats, in the worst way possible.
Oh my god! At least he was one and done. He was like, all right, this guy's gets an episode or two. All right, on to the next one. Real quick, why did Weather Report have a JoJo birthmark on his shoulder?
Okay, so let me.
This is why I was like, wait, these are like actual sons of Dio. So why does he have a Joestar birthmark?
So Dio, I have to take it back to explain this well.
Okay.
When Dio took the original JoJo's body, he mixed his blood with JoJo's blood, so then all his children end up with birthmarks. So they're not only sons of Dio, but they're also sons of Jonathan Joestar.
Jonathan, yeah.
So that's where it becomes, a little iffy. But because the baby was like a reincarnation of Dio, it was a creation of Dio, but it wasn't Dio. It was searching to be something new. Okay. So that's why he had the birthmark, because it had the bone of Dio. The bone of Dio, which was really the bone of Jonathan Joestar as well.
But why did Weather Report have the birthmark?
So when the baby fuses with Pucci, then whoever's related to Pucci will get the birthmark.
Okay. So it's possible that the sons of Dio before didn't have the birthmark, and it took
just like, because remember, all the sons of Dio were always afflicted with Stan.
Okay.
But they just couldn't control it until Pucci came in and,
Okay. So exclusively with Weather Report, the reason why he has it is because when he fused with the baby, Pucci and the baby, that awakened, I guess, that birthmark in
the blood
in Weather Report. Okay. Got it. Okay.
So whoever has it is either Pucci, Weather Report, people that are related to Dio, or Joestar.
Okay. That squares it away, because I'm telling you that, because I think that was the first person that we saw with the Joestar birthmark that wasn't, a Joestar person. So I was like, oh, wait, what's going on here? And then you get introduced to the sons of Dio, and I'm like, oh, so these cannot be literal sons of Dio. They got to be like something convoluted that they all got birthmarks for some reason.
I think it was really a red herring, because then you think, when you're going through it the first time, you're like, oh, is Weather Report a son of Dio? Is he a Giorno that got like
that's what I was thinking of. Okay. God, Araki and these damn red herrings. Jesus Christ.
It really was just to like, to throw you off.
Right.
But it had an explanation in the end. But yeah, the
Okay.
baby
I'm
was
satisfied.
yeah, the baby was kind of like this being that was supposed to basically become or have godlike powers, which we
Yeah.
see at the end.
Yeah.
And that's why it needed to be fused with Dio, and someone loyal to him. Convoluted mess, but it ultimately makes sense.
I buy it. I buy it. Because I feel like once you wrap up the weather report arc, now it's like it's all exclusive. Like let's finish this fight with Poochie. But I mean, I don't know how Araki does this. He makes me feel for like every death in JoJo. He's done it 6 parts straight. The first, what was it? The first? No, the second batch of episodes. FF is the one that dies.
Foo Fighters, yeah.
Yep. She dies. That was really sad. And then Weather Report dies. And people
Weather Report had Poochie on his neck, ready to
literally Poochie was begging, saying, "Oh, like Poochie, like that was it. He had no out in that one." And I remember just losing my mind, saying, "Oh my God, Jolene, if you hadn't run over him with your car, that would have been it. Weather Report would have gotten his revenge, justice, everything."
And this is what I'm saying here, but we're gonna talk about it at the end. This has the most clear definition of fate, that defines the entire series.
Right.
So we need to talk about how the role that fate plays in the series, because this is the big conclusion. This makes every single part up till now make even more sense than it already did.
Okay.
That's the tying theme. But yeah, something happens. Weather Report dies, but he doesn't die without taking his stand out or having his stand in his hand.
Right. Because I think he gives it to Jolene, right? And then we don't know what happens with it after that. We know someone has it, but we don't know who or when they're going to use it or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, oh man, that kind of took me by surprise. Weather Report dying like that. As soon as he got his leg blown off, I'm like, okay, this guy's probably dying sometime soon. The second someone loses a limb and they can't recover it with their stand ability, it's probably a red flag. They're about to die.
Well,
probably.
Think about it like this: the only other person to lose a limb up to this point in Part 6 was FF.
Oh yeah, FF. Well, FF could like regenerate, right? Some of it.
Yeah, but she lost multiple limbs.
Right.
So she also died.
She's part on the list. She's on the list. But yeah, once Weather Report wraps up, then we're full on. Let's chase Poochie down to the Kennedy Space Center, because I guess Poochie's goal at this point is, I need to survive for like the next 3 days until the new moon, so that the new moon can awaken my stand, so that White Snake can evolve into what will let me obtain heaven. And I think the concept of heaven is very interesting, and how I guess these characters interpret it, because Araki in his art, I mean, he clearly depicts there is a heaven in the JoJo universe, like an afterlife in a way. Like whenever you see a character die, you see them ascend, and you see like the cool art of like them going to the clouds. I always like that. That's like really cool. But for the characters in the universe, there's like a more interesting idea of what heaven is, or how a character interprets heaven, which Poochie kind of alludes to throughout, his entire evolution of his stand. So, they get to the Kennedy Space Center, and hell starts breaking loose, right? Gravity turns literally like 90 degrees. Everyone's falling. It really feels like an end of the world a little bit.
Yeah. And we see the new stand that Poochie has, which is Sea Moon. And
I heard it. I'm like, all right, Araki, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
And it's just so. At that point, I was like, oh, this is tough, But then we get the, and they're trying to fight it. Hermes gets taken off by the gravity, and things are just, shenanigans are happening. Mm-hmm. And then Emporio gets they're fighting him. They have him on the ropes, but then Seamoon punches Jolene, and then you just see Jolene kind of convulse into herself.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you see like
And
her heart exit like her body or something.
yeah, and then it's just kind of like, damn, I don't know how this is gonna resolve.
I didn't either. I mean, I think immediately when you see Jolene falling, that's when you see Emporio get that text message from Jotaro, and you're like, oh my god, whoa, Jotaro's coming back in.
He's coming back.
Like, that's really
It's
cool. But I had questions. I was like, how does Jotaro know that Jolene just got punched like that? When is he gonna get there? Why is he texting Emporio? So many questions, and I was really gripped to figure out like how these characters were gonna exit this. How are they gonna survive something like this? Because Seamoon kept getting stronger. Like it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. And I like how resilient Poochie is, because I mean the man is innovative. I'll give him that. Like, because I'm wondering this entire time, they have this man cornered at the Space Center. He still needs like 2 or 3 days or something like that. He still has time until the new moon comes out. So in my head, I'm wondering, is he gonna like escape or like what?
Yeah, I was like, they're there. And it's he still has like, yeah, it's daytime. The moon's not anywhere. But
right.
then Jotaro comes on the scene and we see Jolene come back with a Morbius strip in place of her chest.
That was cool. I like that.
And that was really genius work, because it's using the elements of a stand to their best, possible version.
Right.
And then you have Hermes come back in with the harpoon.
Hermes, yes.
And we really gotta give it up to Speedwagon. Without him,
the Speedwagon Foundation.
Yeah, we gotta give it up to, because he is what Elon Musk thinks he is. Speedwagon is not only is he the best waifu, but his legacy is always there to bail everyone out.
It is
consistently.
Like every time I hear the Speedwagon Foundation is like coming in, I feel safe for the characters. Like I feel like, oh, okay, they're getting back up. They're gonna be okay. And what do you know? They come in, they bring Jotaro, they bring Hermes, all the entire squad is there. And I like when they do this, right? Like when they start playing old themes from the previous parts. I heard
Jotaro's theme from part 3.
Oh my god. He comes in and starts punching the crap out of Poochie. I was here for it. And I'm like, oh my god, this guy has lost. Like all of them are there. You got like 6 stand users that are busted in their own right. You can't win this. What are you gonna do? You got Anasi, you got Emporio. Well, Emporio doesn't really do too much, but you got everyone else.
The most important character.
He is important. He is important.
I think we knew we were in trouble when Jotaro used the world, and then you just see Poochie's eyes shift.
Oh,
and we're
my
like,
god.
This is the same thing that Jotaro did to Dio.
Yes, immediately. That was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, oh my god, that's because even Jotaro was saying it. He was like, who else could do that before? Or even when they did like the knife dances, he was like, wait, only one person did that before. I kept thinking Dio was gonna like teleport behind Jotaro with a kunai knife and say, so long, kid. I kind of wanted it to happen to a certain degree. I was waiting for it.
And when I was first going through this, I'm glad Dio didn't show up.
Yeah.
Because this is more about legacy.
Yes.
than it is about like the characters of like part 3,
right.
And really part 1. This is about like a legacy, like this ties into the main thesis of JoJo, like the main theme, which is fate. And Dio, even after death, is trying to escape his fate. But then Poochie gets in the right position in Cape Canaveral, and he starts glowing, and he's like, "You were my allies all along." And then things start going crazy. I also, we'll get there, but there's a small part that I had to, laugh at. But things
Uh-huh.
start going crazy. Like the world is changing, the world is speeding up, and so it slowly happens. They're like, we were over there at some point. Why did this fall on your head so quickly, even though it was
Right.
only like a foot off the ground?
Mm-hmm.
And things are just like not making sense. There's like a displacement, and things
Right.
just start speeding up, speeding up. By the time that they know that things are speeding up, then you go to a mangaka trying to like draw his art,
Oh,
and
Rohan.
yeah, and then they're
That
like,
was funny.
who can keep up with the growing demands,
These
Rohan?
deadlines.
And that was so funny because I think that was like a plug for the Rohan series. Like,
Oh,
oh
easily. That
yeah,
had to have been.
go watch Rohan,
I
go
need to
watch
watch
this other
Rohan.
thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then things just start speeding up, going crazy, and it's I don't even know how, like, I know it's a time acceleration,
Yeah.
which is like the simplest way to explain it. And we finally I was watching this in dub form, so that I could,
Ooh.
try, because I was like, they're in Florida, it makes sense that they speak English.
Speak American.
It's true, they're in Florida, it makes sense that they
It
speak
makes
English.
sense.
But
It makes sense.
when I got to these, once I knew we were going to Cape Canaveral, I switched back
Okay.
because I really wanted to hear the Japanese voice actor of Pucci just deliver class act in voice
Oh,
acting.
it was 10 out of 10.
And I
Easily.
wanted to hear him go, "Made in heaven."
Oh, he said it.
He said it, and once he said it, I was like, it's over. And
It's
that
over.
final battle, like, you see like the world ending, skies going, like you just see the sea there. There's
Yeah.
no stuff. The world is basically over as we know it. Like,
Right.
and they're still trying to fight, and they're doing great. Like, if Jotaro was willing to let Jolene die, they would have had Pucci.
He probably, yeah. And I imagine, killing Poochie would have stopped the stand ability of speeding up time like really quickly. I mean, it really felt like a cataclysmic event because it wasn't like a stand with like a range. Like when Poochie had Sea Moon, when gravity started being flipped, it still made sense in that it was only up to a certain range because all
And
stands
it started
have a
with
range.
Pucci. It started with
It
Pucci.
started with Poochie.
Yeah.
So if Poochie went to like Atlanta, Georgia, did the same thing, it would only be in Atlanta, Georgia. But with this, once he gets made in heaven, once that happens, it's a global event. Everything in the world starts speeding up. Now it's like, oh my God, they need to stop this guy. Like, he is literally going to destroy. I don't know what he's going to do. He has this God complex where he's trying to say he's doing what's best for humanity because he wants to obtain heaven for them, but we don't know what his version of heaven looks like. And at the same time, they keep alluding to what Jotaro found back in Egypt in part 3, because Jotaro also knows what Dio's vision of heaven would be like what he saw heaven
Yeah.
to be. So yeah, like this entire fight, they're just fighting off, this powerful stand. And Poochie's a god at this point. You have like 3-4 stand users. They can't do anything against him.
No.
With
And he takes them out with ease, one by one. I think,
ease.
and we gotta give it up for Anasi, because he was like, I love Jolene. I'll do anything to save her.
Yo,
And
that simp energy. I like it. I like it.
and they were just, it's interesting. I think one of the only notes that I have is that Hermes was underutilized in the final fight.
Okay, yeah. They did that thing where like they were kind of like riding the bullets from Emporio when they would fire
Yeah.
them. And I think Hermes Sticker the one that was guiding them away from Poochie.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah, like she couldn't really do anything in this fight.
And I think it was just a slaughter, honestly. until like everybody gets. And I think that's one of the. But I remember when I was reading the manga the first time, I was so mad when Jotaro like bit the dust. Like
Oh yeah, like I honest for me, I didn't even think that they died, right? Like I was like, no, they always come out of this. Like something's gonna happen.
I've seen Jotaro stop his own heart and then
Exactly.
restart it
Oh
with his
my
own
God,
stand.
that's right. He would stop his heart for like 30 seconds or something. Like I've seen all these characters go through like, you know, trial after trial. I'm like, okay, they could not have died. Something's gonna happen. Zawardo is gonna be like a new upgraded ability. It's gonna reverse time backwards or something. Something's gonna happen. But no, everyone one by one is dying. And I like once I saw that slit on Jotaro and you see the eye like split apart, I'm like, wait, what stand ability is gonna stop that?
Nope, it's over.
It's over. He's dead. Anasi's dead.
Hermes is dead.
Hermes is dead. All you have is really Jolene and
Emporio. And then
Emporio.
you find out, and Jolene's still lying there because she got stabbed. You find out that Poochie killed Emporio's mom.
Yeah, do you think that was just random? Like, oh, by the way, I killed your mom too. Like, it just felt random. Like, did he need that? Did Emporio need that for like, oh, damn this guy?
It just tied everything together because I think it showed that Poochie was he couldn't be saved. You know what I mean? Like, this was somebody that they had to beat. This is somebody that has such a perversion of morals that he just needs to go down. Yeah, he needs to go down. And Emporio is just like, he's shooting him, and he's like, time to die. And what do you call it? Jolene manages to go wrap around a dolphin that was passing by, and run with them. And it was a smart way to evade Made in Heaven. It was a smart way because she's like, sure, you can accelerate time, but you're still gonna need a swim, you know.
Right.
You know, we're not doing anything actively. They're the ones that are doing it.
Exactly.
So it put people in a position using the environment. I like that. And then Jolene gives the goodbye. And it really did feel it really did feel like, you know, it felt like in part 3 when Joseph died and was saying goodbye to Jotaro. That's what it felt like. Part 3? Yeah.
Oh, when we thought Joseph was going to die from Dio and he was going to reveal the ability. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just like the music was picking up and I was like
I was kind of losing it a little bit.
And then we get hit with like the biggest Uno reverse card. Suddenly we're back in the prison. What?
Oh my God. I mean, you slowly, because, you know, Jolene stays behind to face off Poochie. I thought there was going to be like a trump card that she had. No, dead.
Nope.
Dead. And I'm like, no, like this can't, something has got to give. And then you slowly start to see like the world is just like, the speed is getting like faster, accelerating. Everything's crumbling. People's dentures are falling out of their mouths. And then eventually it gets to a point where you see the universe just
unravel.
Unravel. And I'm like, I'm watching and I'm like, did Poochie like reset everything? Like what did this guy do? And then you end up, like you said, back in the Green Dolphin prison. That's the second to last episode. And I'm wondering, what just happened? I don't understand. I don't understand.
And then as it keeps going, we see that we're in the beginning. What happened at the beginning that set everything off in the room with Jotaro and Jolene.
Right.
Except, we should probably call these
Jotaro and Joline.
And it's just Poochie has this final face off with Emporio of all people.
Right. And the least I did not expect this at all. Like at all.
And he's finally revealing everything. Like he's like, I refuse to, to take this into the next life. He says that once I reset everything, um, souls can't. Once you die in the other world, you're not going to come back in this world.
Right.
And that's
Right.
a really interesting thing. Like whoever was alive during the time he sped up time, traveled
Right.
with him to this new universe. But he wanted to see heaven, and he stopped it so he could stop Emporio so that he wouldn't mess up the plan. And the whole plan is that everyone will be able to know where they're going. Everyone will be able to know when they die, how they die, what happens to them, and just be able to accept it rather than having to live life without knowing.
Right. The fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what heaven looks like to him. And once we wrap up like with the main events, we can get into what that means for everything.
Right.
But then Emporio stands off against him, and he's trying to get him into the room because Emporio's trying to break the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when Emporio gets him in there, he said Uno reverse card. Oh, weather report.
Weather reporto.
And that was just a great final battle because that's the only stand that Pucci was visibly afraid of.
Yes. I mean, it was the stand that almost killed him a couple episodes earlier.
Yep, and almost killed him at the beginning in the flashback. This is the stand that almost killed him many times. And if it wasn't for something interfering, he would not have moved forward.
Right.
It's just when he's there, Emporio is just like telling him off. And he's like, oxygen's actually bad for you.
Yep.
And Emporio's bleeding from his eyes. And
I thought Emporio was gonna die too.
Emporio is willing to risk it all just to stop this man. And Pucci's like crying. He's like begging, please.
I loved it. Oh my God.
I'll give my life. Just let me do this.
That was so satisfying. I'm glad he had him cornered like a rat.
And after everything he did, it was just like, nope, you're going in the ground. Shut up. And finally, Pucci's defeated, and everything gets reset. And we get to see this new universe with Irene and Hermes and Anasi all meeting up with Emporio, but they don't recognize who he is. They don't know each other except Anasi and Irene. They're like, maybe we'll get married, And they're still in Florida, so obviously this is just only slightly better than the other universe.
Right, but just a little.
They're all alive, but and you can still see Irene is Jolene in this universe,
right?
Because she has the birthmark. But now we come to the point. Well, what does all that mean? Do you have an idea, Dr. Jace, of what it all means?
What does the ending mean?
Yeah. What do you think? I'm curious to know what you think.
I'll be honest. Initial reaction watching it, I didn't know what to even feel. I was kind of like, I don't know if I hate this, but I'm not like praising it right now. So that's why I was kind of like in the middle. And I think it took me kind of like sitting down, really watching it. I think I watched it a second time to like really get like, well, okay. What was Araki like really trying to do with this? I mean, for me, it just feels like the whole point of like not being constrained with like fate, not being locked into like this set path, like things will always happen, because maybe part of life is just not knowing when, like what life will bring you in the future. And I think, with how melancholy it ended at the end, I'm like, oh, wow, we don't know anything about what these characters are going to experience. We don't know what even Jotaro looks like in this universe. We don't even know what his name is. It could be Joe Caro or something. But I think that's the kind of the point in a way. I think I've grown to like it a little bit more than how I was initially when I first watched it. Because I was teetering back and forth. I was like, damn, Araki really killed Jolene. Like, he killed Jolene. He killed
everybody.
He killed everybody. Like these. I mean, I get it. Like, Irene is still Jolene in a sense, but it's not the Jolene that I grew to love throughout the entirety of Stone Ocean. Same with Hermes, same with, all these other characters that did not survive. This Jotaro did not experience the same things that our Jotaro experienced. And all of that just got erased and just reset in this new universe. I don't know. I even talking about it now, maybe I'm a little indifferent to it still. Like what do you think? Help me out here.
I've been, it kind of shocked me the first time when I read it, and I think now that I've had more time to think about it, more time to see what the fandom thinks and to see what other people think about it as well, and like their own interpretations of it.
Yeah.
First, we need like a really good explanation. I think in this new universe, what Pucci doesn't necessarily exist, or he is foiled very early on. I think he doesn't exist in this universe because when he was the catalyst of everything happening in part 6, and even before part 6, because as you remember, Jotaro was going around the world and not being at home with his daughter, looking for these stand users and looking for the remnants of Dio.
Right.
And that caused a lot of friction between her and her father, causing her to act out, get involved with gangsters, steal cars, break the law. So in this universe that Pucci, I'm saying that Pucci doesn't exist, or maybe he was the twin, or maybe he was the baby that died instead of that other lady's. Maybe something of that happened.
Yeah.
In the end, I don't think Pucci exists in this universe because he's not affecting the plot.
Yeah.
And then we get into like, it is about like going into the future, not knowing your fate, and this is where it becomes a little difficult because Dio's whole point was that, remember, he grew up from a poor family, a family who tried to rob somebody else and then extort them for money.
Right.
And then, and he hated that. He hated that his lot in life was always to be seen as a poor man's son.
Right.
But was that always the case? No, because the Joestars happily accepted him. They loved him at a certain point. Even though he killed a dog. But
right.
So he was always trying to fight fate. He was trying to fight death. Death is a natural thing. He became a vampire. He became something
That's right. He did.
He gained the power that is unnatural. He literally could stop time and exist in a place where time doesn't matter. And then he tries to create a point where everyone understands their fate and just accepts it, because I think he views that once you know that life is, once you know that where you're going to end up, you can just accept it, and then he was going to rule over that as like a god or whatever human being, human hybrid thing that Pucci was at the end, because Pucci was willing to die, but his effect on the world would have just made him a god, because he
right. It would have been a world that he created.
Yeah. So that's where I think it was trying to go. And then there's a lot of allusions to the Jesus Christ mythos. No spoilers for part 7, but Jesus Christ mythos is very heavy in part 7. So
Jesus Christ is canon to the JoJo universe.
Yes.
Oh my God!
Indeed.
Jesus had a stand.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So, knowing where the future goes in the new universe of JoJo, and looking back on this finale of this universe, you could definitely see that Dio was trying to become the new Jesus. Because the 3 sons of Dio, the three wise men that come
Yeah.
and give
Oh my
gifts,
God.
the
Yeah.
baby that was born from
Wow.
the sacrifice of many. And
Yeah.
if anyone remembers the Bible, Jesus was born, and then all the babies were killed, because they were trying to not let that happen.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of different ideas, permeating. But I think the most prevalent one is, even though that Irene still has the tattoo, or not the tattoo, the birthmark, she's not Jojo. Every part has Jojo. Giorno Giovanna was Jojo.
Right.
And part
Oh
four,
wow, her name. That's
Josuke.
right.
Yes.
Oh. That never
I
clicked. Now, okay, I like that. I like
so
that.
now that so I heard someone explain this, or I read someone explain this, and I like this idea, so I'm running with it. That's to me what happened.
Yeah.
That the Joestar family is there to prevent like evil in the world. They're like the protectors of this idea of fate, and they combat the natural evil in the world. That's why there's 6 parts of them fighting evil in the world. But they need to be a Jojo. The Jojo curse only comes up to me when they have to face an evil. That's why Jolene Jojo had to face Poochie in this part. But because Poochie doesn't exist in this part, creates a landslide of events. She's not Jojo. There's no need for Jojo anymore. Right. Everyone can be happy.
Oh wow. When you put it like that, I think I can appreciate the whole concept of like, this is not the same Jolene. It's a Jolene that can actually live a happy life. Where her dad's actually there. And like still all the previous events still happen. You still have your, Jotaro versus Dio in Egypt, and, Josuke fighting Kira in Morio City. But I think I like it a little bit more now. If that's the concept of it, because Poochie's whole thing with Made in Heaven was knowing what your fate was and having some level of control and knowing it, and kind of just, I guess, living your life maybe to the fullest in that regard. Like, if you know your life's going to end at this point, might as well live until then.
And it's actually a little bit more sinister than that, because
you
can't change.
Right.
To him, knowing that you can't change it and still living anyway. Knowing that that everything that's going to happen, but you can't change it, which is absolutely terrifying. That's like living in a world where everything. It's basically just seeing a simulation of things that are already mapped out.
Right.
And that's and the only one, of course, that would be free from this specific rule would be the Poochie Dio thing.
Yes.
That Poochie becomes at the end.
Right.
So again, it's I think for a finale, of not only like, this is to me a finale of all 6 parts that came before it, because it was an evolution of all parts that came before it. And that's why I like the anime version a little bit better, because you see Weather Report getting picked up, and then you hear the very reminiscent of guitar strums, and then the ending is
yes, yeah.
And then you see all the stars and all the backdrops of all the parts of JoJo that came before.
I like that.
I think that was so much more. It's something that they could do in anime that they can't do in the manga,
right?
Because it kind of gives you a sense of, and the journey goes on, but this is over. This part is over.
This is over. This is what kind of like what the legacy was building up to in a way. Because like it was like what you said earlier. Dio in every single part of JoJo had his footprint as to like what was causing the events in that story. Like probably his most removed part was maybe part 4, but even with part 4, the arrow.
The arrow,
like
he
literally the arrow.
And the dad that, what do you call it? He turned into he turned into like a gremlin thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So there was multiple things, but again, the ideas were just building on each other. Like
Right.
when you look at part one, it was about vampires. Then part two, it was about what eats vampires. Then part three is like, what if the vampires could evolve in some way? And then
Right.
part four and five were like the evolution of that idea, the evolution of stands. And then part
Mhm.
six, it just comes full circle where they're finally evolved to this basically create an entirely new universe.
Yeah,
The Dio was playing the long game. He really was.
he was. No, I also tried thinking of it in a way where like, what was Araki's position when he was writing this back then? And I started to think, maybe to some degree, he was kind of tired of always trying to find these ways to have like Dio's influence come back into the story. Because without Dio, you don't have a continuation of what's going on in the next part of JoJo. I don't know what happens in parts 7 and 8. I don't know if there's a Dio in those versions. I don't know if there is a Dio, if he's involved in both parts in any way. But I feel like this was Araki's way of maybe just kind of unshackling himself from this universe and not having to commit like, oh God, part 7 in this universe. Oh, what am I gonna do now with Dio and him being involved in the story in some way?
Yeah.
I literally just made an event that destroyed their known universe because of Dio's legacy in Poochie. How the hell am I gonna top that in a part 7?
And yeah, I think that's so. It's a very minor spoiler. There is a Dio in part 7.
Okay. Okay.
But no one is as they appear in the first 6 parts. Part 7.
Okay.
From that point on, things become very different.
They're new. They're new. Like
yeah.
He's Dio in name, but it's a new character. He's not. Yeah. He's not the. My favorite version of Dio is part 1 Dio. You thought your first kiss would be with Jonathan, but it was Dio. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But this was definitely the conclusion of, big time conclusion. And I really have to say that, like I was saying, the last 6 episodes, the animation was really well done, especially in the stand fights. Like there were some moments where like the fighting was so fluid, that I was like, wow, this is like movie level quality.
Right.
And then at the end, when you see like the high concept stuff, they really did a really good job of adapting, I think, in the 3rd part and in the 1st part.
Yeah.
I think the 2nd part kind of meanders a little bit, but I don't know if that's the anime's fault or if it's the manga that they're adapting it.
Because it's like the middle part of like, the beginning is your introduction, the ending is obviously your ending, but it's that middle batch where it's like, okay, we're kind of just lollygagging through the prison and fighting whatever's the stand user of the week. I feel like every JoJo part has some level of like that type of storytelling in it. It's like, all right, this guy, whoever they're fighting this week, I know he's gonna play no role whatsoever in the ultimate story. But right now this person is threatening Jolene and the crew, so they have to take care of him. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this final batch a lot more than the second one. I can say that. Yeah, it's definitely a strange feeling to see like the ending, not the ending of JoJo in its entirety, but a ending of JoJo, because it's the ending of the universe that we know it. Like for me, I don't read the manga. I'm just watching the anime. And to me, this is like the ending of the universe that I grew to love. Goodness, 2014, 2015 is when like I got into JoJo. And honestly, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad to see things like that. But Araki's really good at what he does, and he's still going with JoJo strong. And I hear a lot of people.
Part 9.
Part 9. Yes, I heard about part 9. I heard about part 9 too, and I've heard, I never go as far as to spoil myself in terms of like looking up like what happens in other parts, but I kind of get a feel for how people feel in general about the different JoJo segments. And I've seen this more than once. But a lot of people praise the next part 7, Steel Ball Run. They say it's like Araki's magnum opus.
It honestly
in
is.
JoJo. Really, really.
Yes,
you're on that train too.
Yes, and I'm worried
Wow.
about if it's gonna come to an anime. If it stays with Netflix, I'm very worried because of the release.
Right.
Steel Ball Run is really good as a manga, so I would recommend just starting from there because there's nothing since you've seen the finale of the first 6 parts, and you understand the world. It was so easy to jump into part 7, because part 7 is a wild. There's so many things happen in part 7 that are just a wild ride. But I really hope that when people look back on Stone Ocean, the people have said that Stone Ocean is the worst JoJo part.
Yes, I have seen that. I have seen people say that.
No, there is no way that this is the worst JoJo part.
What's the worst one in your eyes? The worst. And I mean, to me, there's no bad JoJo part. I love all the JoJo parts, but they're favorites over the other ones, and something's got to give at the bottom. Something's got to be there. Which one's at the bottom for you?
I think that it depends, because if you're watching, I think part 1 is at the bottom. If you're reading, it's part 5, and it's not a competition.
Interesting. Wow.
It's part 5 is just very hard to understand. You need to have someone explain part 5 to you, and then you have to go read it if you want to go that route.
Okay.
Because there's too much, but watching part 5 is so much better than reading part 5.
Okay.
But I don't know, the first 2 parts of JoJo, even though they were written back in like the 90s and 80s.
Good God, yeah, the 80s easily, because part 3 takes place in like what, 88, 87?
Yeah, and they were written like in like 93, 94, part 3. So
wow.
This series has been going on for a while, so it's hard because we're so young to understand that what JoJo did for shonen.
Oh, it did a lot.
Yeah, it did a lot. Like a lot of these shonen anime, even though it's more of a seinen now, a lot of these shonen anime are particularly shonen action or shonen battle on anime. They owe so much to JoJo, so it's very hard to say what may seem like, oh, it's old news to us, was really news, like really brand new breakthrough stuff back when Araki was writing it. And I
wonder how it feels for Araki too. Like he's kind of watching this for the first time in almost 20 years. That's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if he watches this. I wonder if he
I hope he
takes
does.
a look back. I know that he is having a lot of fun writing JoJo Lands.
That's good.
Which is part 9. Or part 9? Well,
yeah,
part 9 is coming out soon, so he's doing a lot of research for that. But
okay,
I will say that Stone Ocean probably sits.
So that's a tough one for me. Oh God. I know what's at my top and what's at my bottom. It's the stuff in between where
it gets interesting. But I think it's better than part 3.
Okay.
I feel like part 3 suffers a lot from the Jotaro Kujo hacks, the cheat code. So and it was the first one to introduce stands, so the stands are very limited to what they can do. Very basic. And even though it took us on an adventure, I think the characters were probably the weakest. Actually, I'm going to say something, a hot take.
Oh God.
Part 3 is probably the worst JoJo part for me.
Oh God.
No, actually, it's the second one. The second worst one. Part one, I think, is still worse.
Okay.
Um, just because it's just very formulaic. It's a very simple story they were trying to tell.
Right.
I think it's 1, 3, 2. I think I put part 5 next, and then I put part 6, and then I put part 4.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I think, yeah, and I also think that there was someone on this podcast that Kame Chris said, "Oh, Jolene is just a crybaby woman," and I'm like,
That's
no,
right.
no, no.
No, she grew. Like, yeah, she just got thrown in prison. I remember the whole thing about her being thrown in prison, like out of nowhere. No, Jolene's growth throughout Stone Ocean is like she has become one of my favorite Joe stars in the lineup. Like, for me, if I'm ranking the parts, for me it's part 4. Part 4 at the top. Part 4 as of now, I don't know about 7 or 8, but part 4 is like peak JoJo for me. Like, that was a perfect run, and it was just fantastic. Love the characters, love the city, love the villain. Perfect. So it goes part 4. My part 2, my second one is a little bit biased because it has my favorite JoJo in general, and that's part 2. I love Joseph. This guy is fantastic.
He carries the entire.
He carries it. And it's the last instant where we see Hamon used like in a significant way in the anime, at least. And I still appreciated that, where Araki took it as far as he could until he realized, okay, a lot of these other shonens are like introducing like more like visually appealing like battles in terms of like things popping out or people blasting things from their hand. Let me try something new. So Hamon was the last time we saw that. So I like part 2 because of Joseph. And then from there is where it gets iffy. At the bottom is part 1 for sure. At first, before talking about it on the pod, I was ranking. So it goes part 4, part 2. I did have part 3 next, and below that I had part 6 because of that ending. I was so indifferent to the ending despite me enjoying everything else about Stone Ocean. And then below that was part 5, and then part 1 at the bottom. But I think talking about it now, really understanding the whole point of what that ending was meant to be, especially once it clicked where like her name is Irene and not Jolene, and so she's not a JoJo. I think that probably elevated it to above part 3 for me. So like so part 4, part 2, Stone Ocean, right there, number 3. I think it deserves that spot with the ending, and then everything else is the same.
I think it does a lot of things well. I think they did a successful like anime adaptation for it. I really hope that other people will, because there's a lot. I'm not gonna lie, because before JoJo got an anime, a lot of JoJo fans in the West were these massive dude bros that only cared about. Yeah, they only cared about part 3. They only cared about parts 1 through 3.
Oh yeah,
because that's the one that got the most attention. Because part 3 had an adaptation before,
right?
And and it's just like, oh, I'm a misogynist. I hate women.
That's right. That's right.
There's just a lot of that, and part 6 gets a lot of hate because Jolene and Hermes and Foo Fighters are the main characters. Because women are at the forefront of this part,
right?
People hate this part, and I hope that this anime kind of shows people that they don't have to hate it. Jolene is a very good. She's, I think, the only protagonist in all of JoJo's that goes through an arc.
Yeah, she Kame Chris was saying earlier that Jolene is like a crybaby. But it's like, I haven't seen her do that once in the second batch or the third batch of episodes.
Once Foo Fighters dies, and she gets the memories from her father. She's like, nope, I know
That's
what I
it.
have to do.
I
And
love that. That's an
and there's
arc.
even yes, and there's even moments where she falls back and she's like, is what I'm doing right? Like when she's like cuddling up to like Anasi,
I know.
and then she
Yep.
throws the ring
Yep.
out of the
Oh, that
car.
was funny. I like
Yeah,
that.
like
Nasi's
they're
attempts are hilarious.
and it's just this. I feel like Jolene helps carry this part because
Mm,
she has a very clear arc, but because she is not the badass that her father is, people look down on her.
right,
um
right. I can
so
see that. I can see people being sticks in the mud about
and
that.
everyone had an arc here because Hermes had the revenge arc,
Oh
Emporio
yeah,
had
with sports
the arc where
maxing.
he had to grow up and like realize that, well, like sometimes you have to sacrifice to do what's best
Right,
for
right,
everybody.
right.
Anasi had an arc where he had to like care.
Yeah, I mean he,
Maybe
he
I
did.
shouldn't.
He had
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
maybe I
because
shouldn't be a
before he
killer.
was just a murderer. He was
Yeah,
just a criminal in that sense. And he it goes from, oh, I'm only gonna protect Jolene because she's the one I care about, to let me protect all of Jolene's friends and family because she cares for them and I want her to be happy.
yes.
That's growth.
It's
I like
it's
that.
it's it's a lot of growth. Yeah, and I just and then the villain. The villain is probably one of Pucci is a very memorable villain. I would say that I still put him
Ooh.
above.
I've
I
never
would.
ranked the villains before. I'd never consider that.
It's because most of them are either Dio clones or Dio. Um, I think Kira is the number one villain, even though he comes
Kira's really
very
good.
late in part
My
four.
one criticism,
Yeah,
he comes
and
very, very late.
I get why. It's because it's the story is about the town.
Yes, it's
Um,
establishing the city before
yeah,
introducing the guy that's going to shake up the peacefulness of that town.
yeah. I think I still put him number one because there was just something about his writing that Araki did very well and
Yeah,
unsettling. It was kind of like the worst kind of people can be right in front of you. You have no idea,
right,
you know.
right.
And then I would put Dio and Pucci on the same level, just because I feel like everything that Dio, because Dio was very cut and dry character,
Yeah,
but
he
I
was
feel
very
like
straightforward. Like,
yeah,
yeah, not too
and
complicated.
I feel like the idea of Dio is better than Dio and in JoJo
Yeah,
because I feel like Pucci is a lot better of a villain because he has a very interesting backstory. You see his descent into Dio's arms, and
right.
also we have to shout it out. Pucci is a gay man. He does not like women. He is gay. He's gay
Gay for
for
Dio,
Dio.
gay for
Gay for
Dio,
Dio.
and Dio welcomed it. Dio welcomed
And
it.
it's just and then the rest of them are kind of like they're fun to watch because they're better than I think most villains in JoJo, but
Mm,
villains in anime. But I feel like Uchi kind of rounds out the top, right under Kira and like right next to Dio,
yeah,
and everyone else
yeah.
kind of just falls in.
I think my ranking for the villains would be pretty much in the same boat too. Kira definitely at the top. Poochie, close second, and then Cars is at the bottom for sure.
Yeah,
I like Cars. I like Cars, but probably I would say the most generic out of all the villains.
he's just a Dio clone without being Dio.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so and then Diavolo.
Oh
Diavolo was
my god.
better as a
Just
concept, like as a force of nature that they needed to stop,
yeah.
rather than an actual character.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah,
When I have to look
and
up his stand ability to get an explanation what it does, that's where your villainy kind of loses me a little bit. Um but yeah, that's like basically part 6. Do you want, I imagine you want them to animate part 7. I mean, I want them to animate part 7 as well, Steel Ball Run. But I imagine you don't want you don't want David Production or whoever's in charge for these deals for distribution. You don't want them to do it with Netflix again. Don't do it. Or if they do, Netflix has to change, like, at least for anime. Do these weekly.
Yes.
Do these
Yes.
weekly.
I think
Okay.
I think look, whoever if someone at Netflix is listening to us right now, do the weekly releases on you can and maybe save the binge ones for like things that you're not going to promote so heavily. JoJo should have been a flagship of your
Right.
subscription service.
Right.
Just
Easily.
as like in because JoJo is such a big name in the anime community that for live action you have Stranger Things, for animation you have JoJo. That's where
Easily.
it needs to be, needs to be broadcast. And do the week to week. Do the week to week.
It won't
Because
hurt. I promise it won't hurt.
it will make people, if you do like 30 episodes like the last couple of seasons have been doing, that's 38 weeks of non-stop Netflix subscription services.
You got the anime community on a leash. They ain't leaving because they want their
And-
JoJo fix every week.
And it seems like these people had the episodes ready last year,
Yeah.
and maybe they
Yeah.
only did some touch-ups here and there. But this was definitely, mostly done. You just release it week to week.
Right.
No one cares for releasing it a part now, 8 months later, or a part later. No, release it week to week. You'll have us invested.
JoJo is definitely one of the few animes that I would say it functions better as a weekly anime. Because part of me wishes that it was weekly, because I would have been curious to see what people and the community would have thought of these characters by each week. Are people's minds being changed about what they thought about part 6? What about newbies that are just watching part 6 for the first time? How do they see it as a weekly compared to people that were reading part 6 back then? And I guess you get that to a certain degree now that everything's over. Now people are kind of giving their takes on Stone Ocean, but I feel like an element of JoJo is missing when you don't do it weekly. It's unfortunate. So I mean, I'm hoping they do Steel Ball Run. I did read somewhere that one of the producers on the show or one of the showrunners basically said, as far back as part 1, assuming JoJo took off, like, the anime, they had every intention to carry it at the very least up until part 6. And back then, I didn't know why. I'm like, what? Well, why part 6? There's like
The big
8
finale.
parts.
Yeah.
And now I understand. It's like, oh, wow, that's the finale of this universe of JoJo. That makes total sense. That doesn't necessarily mean they won't do a part 7 adaptation or part 8. But, to tell a continuous story and then be finished with it, now it's like, well, we told the story that we had intended to tell from part 1. If you guys want part 7, we could do it. But I hope, despite the momentum this show could have had, if it had been weekly, I hope David Productions still goes forward with making part 7, because JoJo's still big in the community. I was still invested in Stone Ocean. I love Stone Ocean, and I didn't think I was gonna say that because I saw how the community thought about part 6, thinking, wow, is that really the worst part? Damn. I thought that. I'm like, wow, it must be really bad. That's typically the worst part that I see people talk about with Stone Ocean. I'm done with Stone Ocean. I completely disagree. It is not the worst part in JoJo. By far, it's not the worst part. So we'll see on a part 7. Any final thoughts, Zeno, on just like part 6 in general, or like where you want to see them take part 7 in any way? Steel Ball Run?
I just really wish that people watch part 6, and this won't hinder its effect on, or maybe it will just help the general consensus on it, because unfortunately it is skewed. It's still skewed because of those dude bros that are still are still in the JoJo fandom. But once the anime came out, the gays came for JoJo. And they haven't
came in swarms. Everyone does JoJo poses now. I do JoJo poses for unrelated content that we do that's not about JoJo. So I love the series. I definitely love it. I can't wait for a potential part 7. You know, this is my way of like enjoying JoJo. Ultimately, if they don't do it, I'll probably just read it. I tried reading JoJo a couple times. It was just missing that element that the anime gives. Like I love the music, I love the voice acting, I like the different shades of colors.
Yes, the color palette switching. Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I know I can read the manga, yeah, and it'll be colored as well. And they'll switch around with that, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe in a year. If I don't hear anything in a year, I'll commit.
And this is maybe take this out, but what do you call it? Don't read JoJo on Shonen Jump. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
I know it's an official source. Don't do it. They're not colored pages.
Oh,
they're still they're releasing part 6 week to week right now, and they just got to the part where they're still in the prison.
They're re-releasing the chapters?
Yes.
Like as a weekly thing?
Yes.
What? Oh, wow. Okay.
I guess because to try and get fans still invested into JoJo with the release.
I guess.
But
yeah,
they're like in the prison way before Jolene. I think it's before Jolene is even got the disc to the Speedwagon Foundation.
Oh wow, they're early.
So they're still early. Yeah, very early.
Okay.
So don't do it. Don't find another way.
I won't do it. I will take my my copyrighted music for these names, for these stand names, all day, every day. I want Made in Heaven. I don't want Made in Heaven. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. But all right. We'll see. Check out Stone Ocean, folks. I think that's all we have to say on Stone Ocean in its entirety. It's a great JoJo part. I think we can all agree on that. Stone Ocean is definitely up there among the best in the JoJo sequences, and I think it's worth your time investing now that all the episodes are out. You don't have to wait for batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. It's all out there, all 38 episodes. And it's among the best. What can I say? And we'll see about Steel Ball Run. Hopefully we get an announcement or something in the near future. But if this is the last adaptation for JoJo that we get, I think I'll be okay. I'll be okay with this. They finally concluded everything. But let us know what you all think, everyone, about JoJo Stone Ocean. Is this your favorite JoJo? Is Jolene your favorite JoJo? What did you think about the ending? Was it just not your cup of tea, even though, you know, it kind of goes back into the whole point of fate and legacy? Or did you like it? And if you're a manga reader, what did you like carrying over into part 7 and 8? Do you think Araki should have stuck with this universe, or are you glad, you know, the direction that he took the series from here? Let us know what you think down in the comments below, wherever you're listening to us on. We're on all social media podcast listening stations, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at the Yonko Table. All links in the description box down below. Check that out if you want to give us a listen for our take on JoJo. Oh, man. But with that, everyone, I'm your Yonko host, DrJaceAttorney, fellow supernova Nino Desplazado, signing off with our iconic JoJo poses. Nino, do you got a JoJo pose you want to share? Come on. I know you got one. Come on. Anyone.
Got Polnareff, the one where he's like, you can't do it, but just imagine that I'm doing Polnareff.
I imagine it. It's there. Catch you later, folks.